The Gilded Age was a term coined by Mark Twain. This time period saw many changes to American economic and social society. One of the main changes to society was the mass expansion of urbanization and the drawing of newcomers and immigrants into American cities. Urbanization had positive impacts and negative impacts on American life. These included new technologies, cultural benefits, political scandals, new immigrants, class distinctions, and philosophies.
The Gilded Age urbanization had many positives. New technology brought changes to the American landscape and led to the advancement of cities. The invention of the elevator enabled buildings to grow vertically instead of horizontally, allowing for more living space, leading to more densely populated cities. In 1852, Elijah Graves Otis invented the first safety brake for elevators, allowing for a new urban skyline. The elevators allowed for buildings of skyscrapers upwards, which greatly changed the cities in the early 1900s. The large development of steel allowed for the construction of high-rises. The bustling cities became a desired place to live and provided a number of job opportunities from factories, so the increase in available homes and apartments resulted in a spike in city population. Population in cities tripled, and by 1900, 40% of Americans lived in cities. The development of skyscrapers ultimately allowed builders to use space effectively and were able to fit more buildings into smaller amounts of space. Gas-lit New York homes beginning in 1825. After electricity came to cities, gas-powered lights and city-employed lamplighters as well as oil lamp and candle manufacturing were unneeded. Electric light was cheaper and a better alternative to gas lighting. Street lights became an important public safety and ensured that citizens were able to see their surroundings when walking at night. Street lighting also allowed for more nightlife to occur because the ability to stay out after the sun sets. An increase in population also increased urbanization and industrialization waste. Before sewage systems, cities relied on their poor citizens to remove waste. The idea of municipal sewage solid waste was a leap forward in cities' industrialization and allowed for waste created by households and businesses to be collected and disposed of in an organized way. Private and public libraries began flooding cities. The New York Public Library became the largest public library in all cities across America. Libraries in cities demonstrated wealth, cultural values, and democracy in American society, and resulted in increased lower-class knowledge and education. Public libraries allowed for free information to be dispensed democratically and spiked a passion for education in all economic classes. Education grew due to immigration and population growth. Public schools were funded by states and towns. Due to social changes, schools became more available to African American, Native American, and poor white students. Women began joining teaching and nursing jobs and became the primary force in education. All states enforced requirements on minimum school attendance, teaching certificates, basic curriculum, and graduating tests. Before the Gilded Age, theater was greatly influenced by English and continental playwriters. However, during the Gilded Age, America's own playwriters and actors emerged. The Gilded Age provided the introduction of musical theater. This led to a large class distinction, and only the rich were able to afford shows. The advancement of moving pictures allowed the working class to enjoy some entertainment. Local parks were helpful for the integration of people of different cultures, and museums added luxury entertainment for higher social classes, which directly resulted in a new ideal of luxury lifestyle.
The time period of the Gilded Age urbanization was not always perfect. There were many issues surrounding urbanization. These issues included rapid immigration, the movement of people from rural areas to industrialized cities, poor housing, and huge controversial political scandals. The rapid growth of immigrants in America had a negative effect on urbanization because there was more competition for jobs, and people were clumped together living in awful conditions where disease ran rampant and hunger was ongoing. They lived in cities just so that they could work in factories where they got paid very low wages and worked very long hours. Child labor was also a negative aspect during urbanization in the Gilded Age. Children needed to provide for families and were sent to do odd and dangerous jobs. Another negative effect of urbanization during the Gilded Age was health. With large populations, diseases were easily passed. In the slums, if an individual became sick, a large amount of the population of the slum became sick as well. Diseases came from the poor sanitation, pollution, poor drinking water, and poor sewage systems. The low education on the disease played a large part in the spreading. Also, with the high poverty in the slums, healthcare was limited because of its high expenses. One of the fast-moving epidemics was cholera, which was an infection in the small intestine because of unsanctioned water. Working conditions were absolutely awful during the Gilded Age. Child labor was very depended on. Specifically, there was a factory in New York in 1911, the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, where 146 garment workers died from a fire within the building. The factory was so packed with workers, and there was no standards or health requirements that protected workers. Children in the building either burned to death or jumped out the windows. However, after this fire, federal legislation was passed, which put in place standards and regulations protecting from this incident to ever happen again. This fire also grew labor unions that fought for the safety of workers.
Urbanization in the Gilded Age saw a massive increase in immigrants into cities. These immigrants were mostly Catholic, Jewish, Eastern European, German, and Irish. They came to America to flee persecution, hunger, and have a renewed hope and look for a new free life. Over 6 million immigrants arrived in the United States. They were stuffed in cities and in very unpleasant, unsanitary houses. Children were forced into labor instead of school because many families needed money that they did not have. Immigrants brought a new diversity of culture to America. While today this seems like a big accomplishment, back then people did not want this type of widespread diversity in their country, and many nativists were scared that immigrants would be taking their jobs and their homes. Acts like the Fair Housing Law discriminated against African Americans and Jews. They were denied tenements or apartments. This fluctuation of immigrants birthed a much wider nativist culture and a new system of scapegoating newcomers by citing the fact that they were taking over the country. Immigrants began to smush into many different major cities. When people walk past Chinatown or Little Italy, they see where those pockets of immigrants settled. Most immigrants came through Ellis Island from Europe, which led right into New York City. That is where most of the immigrants settled, in New York City. The Statue of Liberty reads, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free." Libraries were important to immigrant adoption, as it allowed them to have a free public space to learn and expand their knowledge on American culture and even learn how to speak English.
The Gilded Age saw a much more cohesive class distinction than in the past. The classes included the nouveau riche, the middle class, and the working class. Class distinction was caused by the United States being flooded with immigrants. The nouveau riche were the rich families of America. They had so much money that they could throw huge parties and would spend their money on large plots of land and rare art. The middle class was a term that was made popular during the Gilded Age. There was a need for blue-collar workers because of the large growth of large corporations. Managers, engineers, and sales representatives were these types of jobs. Because there is a new group of people that can afford to spend money on entertainment, such things as magic acts, movies, circuses, amusement parks, and sporting events emerged. The working class was a group made up of mostly immigrants. They came here to live the American dream, but soon realized that they would work long hours and get low pay. They had the dream of moving up in the world and buying houses, but then realized that this is not accomplishable.
Social Darwinism is the idea that, like animals, the fittest race and class of people would come to and remain in power, whereas the lowest class would remain below because of their lack of motivation and intelligence. This ideology justified having an upper and lower class, along with racism. Puritans believed that hard work was the only way to successfully achieve goals of wealth and power. They also believed that hard work was work that pleased God, meaning that non-Puritans could not be considered hardworking. The Gilded Age was a crucial time in the development of America, and urbanization was a crucial part of that. From immigration to class distinctions, American society changed like never before. There were positive and negative effects of urbanization, but nevertheless, the nation persisted so that a new century and a new America could begin.